Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to do a beer that is half Swedish, half Dutch, and it's two very well established breweries that are involved in this collaboration today. So for the Swedish side of things we are going to head up towards Gothenburg, Göteborg as you'd say in Swedish, and we're going to visit one of my favourite Swedish breweries at the moment once again. So this one is another beer from Bryggeri, who are based at Landvetter, just outside the airport in the city. And it is called the Windmill and Airport, and they're describing it as a red wine barrel-aged Belgian strong ale. This is a collaboration beer, of course, with Brouwerij de Molen, who are from Bodegraven in the Netherlands, who, of course, you know, the name literally translates from English as the windmill or the mill. But yeah, so they're describing this as a red wine barrel-aged Belgian strong ale. From what I gather, Systembolaget had this one registered on the website as being somewhat akin to a quadruple. So very curious to see how this one turns out, and you know, it's two very good breweries here, so I'm sure they will have pulled something special out of the hat for their collaboration brew. It comes in at 11% ABV, and yeah, just very curious to see how this one turns out. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. This is one that was released on the 15th of February 2019 through the small partiers in Systembolaget here in Sweden. I'm not sure if you can get this one down in the Netherlands, so do check that out. And a shout out, of course, to all of the Dutch beer geeks, the Dutch beer reviewers, I should say. Thomas Opent, Beer Geek Holland, Dutch Beer Geek. Those guys are doing some very nice reviews, both in English and in Dutch. So since it's a Dutch beer, a big shout out to those guys, and make sure you check out their videos when you get the chance. But yeah, let's get on to the actual history part of the video itself. So as always, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done both from Bryggeri and from Brouwerij de Molen. Hopefully I can add more from both in the near future. Bryggeri are always pumping things out, so I'm sure I'll get some of them. Hopefully I can get a hold of some de Molen stuff as well. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that are reviewed for you, and one for all the Dutch beers. This one will appear in both because it is half and half. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the breweries then. So Bryggeri, as I've mentioned to you before, are based in Landvetter, which is on the outskirts of Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden. But the brewery was established back in 2005 in Mölndal by Mikael Engström Dugge, and since 2010 they focused mainly on the brewing of top fermented beers. But due to the kind of boom that we've had in Swedish craft beer over the last little while, these guys, pardon me, very quickly outgrew their original brewery, and so they moved up to Landvetter, closer to the airport in Gothenburg. But the older brewery had a capacity of only 1,500 hectolitres per year, but the new brewery started off with a capacity of around 8,000 hectolitres of beer per year, and they have expanded it since, from what I gather. At this new Bryggeri, they are very good at stouts, imperial stouts in my opinion, particularly coffee stouts. Some of the coffee stouts I've had from those guys have been really absolutely immense. They also contract brew some of the beers for Omnipollo as well. A lot of the Omnipollo imperial stouts are produced at the Bryggeri as well, and they're also doing some really nice IPAs recently. Actually, they've been producing some very nice stuff within that kind of category. But yeah, definitely one of the Swedish breweries that you want to check out if you get a chance to try some of their beers. Pretty much pick a style that you like and you will certainly enjoy it. Very good at sours, IPAs and imperial stouts, and if you find something else slightly different from that, it's quite a rare thing. They mainly focus on those three different styles. So yeah, Bryggeri are definitely one of the Swedish breweries that you want to check out. So yeah, that's the Swedish side of things. If you want to learn more, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and that will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there. So yeah, on to the Dutch side of things then, Brouwerij de Molen. So Brouwerij de Molen are a small craft brewery, distillery and restaurant that are located in Bodegraven in the Netherlands. And as I mentioned earlier, de Molen literally translates into English as the mill, and this originally original brewery was located in a historic windmill which was called the Artweef, built back in the year 1657. But De Molen was founded back in 2004 by Menno Olivier, who started out as a home brewer before turning professional, and then he actually founded his own company as well. But these guys, they were producing very, very small batches of beer still in the windmill, from what I believe, but they have got another brewery building that's just down the street from this the original brewery that they had, and apparently they're exporting around 60% of the beer that they produce. They are one of the bigger Dutch craft beer exporters, if you like, but they're a very, very well established name, probably one of the best known Dutch craft beer breweries today. But from what the guys Beer Geek Holland, Thomas Opent and Dutch Beer Geek are all saying, there's a lot of very, very good little craft breweries there. Now, I was there back in, I want to say, 2014, and I reviewed maybe 10 or so Dutch beers that I picked up, which was very cool, and the standard, even at that point, was very high. So I think, you know, given it's been about 5 years since I was in the Netherlands last time, I'm sure they will have done some really, really nice things, and we were talking about that. I do actually need to go down to the Netherlands at some point and catch up with these guys and let them show me some of the really, really good Dutch beers. But they're reviewing some great stuff, as I said, and you know, Brouwerij de Molen are one of the guys who have been on the block for a little while, actually. 2004, so these guys have been doing beer for around 15 years now, and you know, Dugas Bryggeri as well are doing their 15-year beers too. So yeah, two very, very well established breweries here, as I mentioned. If you want to learn a little bit more about Brouwerij de Molen, you can check them out on you can check their website out in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that as well, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest things that they're doing. Again, quite a prolific brewery and always pumping stuff out there. But yeah, that's all you need to know about both the breweries here. So let's get on to the actual tasting of the beer itself. As I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is an 11% beer. It was listed on Systembolaget as being a quadruple, so I'm guessing that yeah, it should be somewhere along that lines. It says on the side here, a red wine barrel aged Belgian strong ale. Unfortunately, Systembolaget gave me one of the ones where the label has been a little bit hurt, if you like, but yeah, it should be a really, really nice beer. It says a red wine barrel aged collaboration between De Molen and Dugas, two breweries that have grown up together. Dried fruits, rummy, winey, maple and heather honey sensation, followed by a dry finish, mature. But yeah, you can see here is the Brouwerij de Molen symbol here, the Artweef, which is very, very nice. And where's the Dugas usually have one of their little things here as well, but it just says up here, this is part of their, this is the symbol they put on their barrel aging series, actually, just to let you see that too. But yeah, plain bottle cap on this one, as you always get from Dugas Bryggeri. I do wish actually they would just put Dugas in white writing over this. That would actually be quite a nice little touch to their bottles, but it's probably quite expensive for them to do that, but I would love to see that on these Dugas beers. But yeah, let's get this guy out then, and we will get on with the tasting. I'm very, very curious to see what this beer throws up. As I mentioned as well, this one was released on the 15th of February 2019 through the Små Partiers in Systembolaget here in Sweden. So yeah, that looks absolutely lovely. Yeah, so we can get rid of the brewery notes now, and we are on to the tasting section of this beer. So yeah, as you can see, and if I hold this beer up to the light, it's actually a very, very dark ruby colour. It's got a nice chestnutty kind of mahogany edge to it as well, but mainly this is a very, very dark sort of ruby colour, so not out with the realms of possibility for you know, a quadruple. As I say, I don't know exactly what to expect from this beer, other than to tell you that it's a very nice dark Belgian type beer. But yeah, it looks absolutely lovely actually. There's a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawny, slightly beigey coloured head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it does look very, very nice actually. Very curious to see what this one has in to offer. There's one or, as I say, one or two big bubbles and a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of the head, and I'm not sure how you guys are going to be able to see it on the camera, but if I hold this beer up to the light, there is a good bit of transparency to this one. This one is actually quite clear, but I think that's not going to be too apparent to you guys because of just how dark it is. You're not really going to see that too much on the camera. But yeah, it looks very, very nice. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this beer. Yeah, straight away you can smell that sort of, what's the word for it, that sharpness from the wine. You can really smell the red winey qualities in there, those dark kind of purpley red grapes coming out of this one. But underneath, when you sugar it up, you get some really lovely brown sugary notes out of this. You know, you can pick up, it's actually quite a sweet brown sugar, but at the same time it's got a little bit of a toasted element to it as well, which is very, very cool. Yeah, very, very nice smell and aroma of this beer. I really like what they're doing with this one. It really comes across very nicely. That's one of the more interesting aromas I've come across recently, actually. But yeah, I mean, mainly, what I'd say about this beer is there is a little bit of that kind of brown, bready, doughy, yeasty kind of thing that you would expect of a Belgian quadruple. You know, it does have that doughy, bready, yeasty kind of base to it, but the brown sugars are stupidly complex in this one. You've got a little bit of a biscuity note in there, you've got a sweeter caramel, you do have a slightly more almost caramelised, heavier brown sugar, slightly darker brown sugar as well, but it's also got a nice kind of slightly toasted element to it, but at the same time it's got all these things mixing together, but it still does stay sweet for the most part actually. I really like that about this. It's a lovely smelling beer, this one, definitely. There's maybe a little touch of a kind of nutty element to this one as well, but yeah. On the fruity side of things, as I mentioned, you get some of that sharpness, that almost tart quality from the red wine, grapes and things like that, from the red purpley grapes that they'll be using in the red wine. But yeah, it smells absolutely lovely, this beer. It's definitely one of the more interesting aromas I've come across in recent times. There's a little tiny touch of earthiness and grassiness in there from the hops. You can pick up some of the green elements of the hops, if you like, coming out of this beer. But on the fruity side of things, it's nice too. You've got a little bit of a kind of raisiny, sort of plummy sharpness to it. It's got a little bit of a figgy, kind of datey sort of thing as well, and a little bit of a candied strawberry, something like that. But you know, overall, the aroma of this beer really is very, very nice. But you wouldn't expect anything less from a Dugas beer that's been barrel aged. And again, Brouwerij de Molen, in my experience, I've only tried maybe 4 or 5 beers from them. But they always can they are very, very capable of producing some really nice stuff as well. The Rasputin Stout is one that comes to mind with these guys. You know, that's probably their best known big beer. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then. I'm very, very curious to see how this one turns out. So this one is which way round is it? This one is the Windmill and Airport. I wasn't sure whether it was Airport and Windmill, from Dugas Bryggeri in Landvetter, just outside of Gothenburg here in Sweden. A collaboration with Brouwerij de Molen from Bodegraven in the Netherlands. So very excited to try this one. A huge shout out once again to the guys in the Netherlands that are doing beer reviews now, Dutch Beer Geek Holland, and also Thomas Opent as well. Big shout out to them. Make sure you check out their videos. Let's get stuck into this beer. Slanje, Skull, Prost. Oh, yeah. That really isn't quite what I expected from this beer. But I'll say straight away, it's pretty damn good, I have to say. And you know, I wasn't expecting it to be, you know, bad or anything like that, but as soon as you take this beer in, it really was not what I was expecting from the aroma. I was expecting a far bigger presence of the red wine, actually. But this it really is a lot more leaning towards the brown sugars and stuff like that. Really unexpected, that, to be honest, but it's a damn good beer. But you wouldn't expect anything less from these two breweries now, would you? Yeah, this is a really, really nice. This is an awesome beer. I would say with this one, take a few sips of it and just kind of think about it a little bit before you start trying to analyse it too much. It's one that I think is going to change a little bit the more and more you drink of it. Yeah. So, with this beer then, it's interesting how it goes actually. So in the middle of your palate, you can feel that there's a light little bit of that kind of doughy, bready, yeasty kind of quality. It's quite minimal though, I would say. That blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, it's actually got this quite, there's a good bit of woody character to this one, I think. It's quite, it's actually got an almost kind of spicy note to it as well. They're saying on the bottle there that it's heather honey. And you know, heather honey is actually very, very popular in Scotland. You know, there's one of my local breweries, Williams Brothers. They have a heather honey ale, which is called the Frech. It's an ancient Gaelic recipe from about 4,000 years ago. And actually, when I think about it like that, this beer actually does have a little bit of that kind of feel to it. So, as I say, you've got this brown bready quality, that doughy, bready, yeasty thing that you would expect of the Belgian beers. That kind of forms the linchpin of the beer. But on top of that, it's just kind of, if you go to the very centre of your palate, you've got a really nice kind of, you know, that's where a lot of the sweetness and stuff will be coming out. But if you just go outside of that, just towards the edge of your tongue, there's almost like two big lines coming forward on your palate, and it's got this woody quality to it, which you would of course get from the barrel aging. And in fairness, when you start to push on with that a little bit, you can maybe get a little hint of a very slight kind of vanilla oaky type character out of this beer. But there is a little bit of spiciness to this one, which is really, really nice. I like how that, I really like how that all goes together. But yeah, it really does have this nice, almost heather honey-ish spice to it, which is really, really interesting. So pay attention to that. That's one of the more unusual things I'm finding in this beer, actually. This beer actually does have a little bit of that kind of spicy sweetness to it, which is unusual. But yeah, if you go to the very centre of your palate, that's where these brown sugars are coming out. And like I was saying, there's quite a sweet caramel to this one. There's a little bit of that slightly darker caramelised kind of treacle molasses sort of thing, but that's quite minimal. To me, it's leaning more towards the sweeter caramel. Yeah, definitely leaning more towards the kind of sweeter caramelly side of things. It's almost got a little bit of that honey wafer type thing. There's definitely some biscuity notes in there. The further you come out from the middle of your palate there, it's got a little bit of a biscuity, wafery type thing to it. So there's a whole host of things going on in the malt base in this beer. It really is just very nice. So sweet caramel and more oily, slightly a very light, slightly treacle molasses sort of thing in there. The further forward on the palate, you get a little bit of a honey type thing, and you've also got some nice biscuity kind of elements to it as well, sort of honey wafer biscuity type note to it. It reminds me a little bit of the McVitie's digestives that we get here. Or we get back home in Scotland. I've not actually seen them here in Sweden as far as I can remember, but I think they do exist. But if you come further forward on your palate, you start to get a little bit of a woody element out of this beer. You can feel there's a little bit of that oaky quality just in front of those brown sugars. And if you go to the very centre of your palate and just come forward a little bit as well, there is an element of nuttiness to this one as well. So all of these flavours are kind of bouncing together. This is definitely one of the more kind of complex beers that you're going to find. And in some ways, I can see how they could relate this style to the quad a little bit, because it does have some similarities, but usually the Belgian quad is a good bit thicker and more kind of oily for this than this one. This one is a little bit lighter in its mouthfeel and things like that. So yeah, it has some elements of the Belgian quadruple, but in some ways it's not like that. It's not quite as sticky and things like that as you would expect from a Belgian quad for me. But yeah, I mean, in terms of it being a Belgian style beer, it is very, very nice, and it's a great beer nonetheless. We can sit and debate about styles and stuff like that all day, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is whether it's a good beer, and I have to say I think they've done a damn good job of this. I've spent a long time just telling you about the malt base in this beer, but you know, they've pulled off a really, really nice, they've done a really, really nice job with this one, so big thumbs up to both the breweries involved here. On the hoppy side of things with this beer then, it's quite simple. In the back corners of the palate you get a nice little bit of earthiness there. as you come kind of further forward, it matures out a little bit. It smooths out. You get a little bit of a herbal kind of quality there, and then as you go forward towards the front of your palate, you get a little bit of a floral character, and round the very front curve of the tongue, you get a nice little bit of grassiness. You know, I think it's typical. I do wonder if they've used just a little bit of Belgian hop in here, or something like that. But it comes across the hoppy side of the beer. Comes across very, very nicely. And if you go behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer is very, very nice. You've got a little bit, obviously you've got these red winey characters just kind of underpinning this one, and they come out, I think the red sort of winey qualities, they're coming out, if you just go to the edge of your tongue and then go in a little bit, you just go right in beside that, you can feel those slightly vinous qualities pushing their way out of the beer. They start to come out more in the aftertaste in my opinion, but the red fruits that are coming out towards the front of the palate there, these are the ones that have been extracted from the hops, I would think. Yeah, and this one is really nice. It doesn't have some of the medicinal, almost phenol-y qualities that you can get from the Belgian quad. It's more of an American barley wine sort of fruitiness, fruity quality that you're getting from this one. So for me, it's quite, it's not quite got a raisiny sharpness, it's more a kind of figgy, datey sort of thing. Sultanas maybe as well. It's got a good mix of stuff going on. It has this sort of alcoholic cake vibe to it, so I would say figs, dates and sultanas really coming out of this one. The further you go into the aftertaste, you start to get these kind of candied strawberries, candied blackberry sort of flavours out of this one, which is very, very nice. And in the aftertaste, it's really some of the woodiness is pushing its way out, some of the brown sugar is there, and some of the little bit of earthiness from the hops is there too, and the red winey qualities are just kind of lingering there as well, and some of that juicy fruity note on the front of the palate. But overall, like I said, the way the flavours in this beer go together is very, very nice. So if you get the chance to try this one, I think you are really, really going to enjoy this. It's quite unusual, but it's got a lot of complexity in it to kind of keep you on your toes. This is the sort of beer you want to review as a beer reviewer. So yeah, big thumbs up to both Douglas Bryggeri and Brouwerij de Molen for this one. They've produced a really, really nice beer. So I'd love to see these guys collaborate a little bit more actually. But yeah, special beer this one, and I'm glad I was able to review this for you. In terms of the mouthfeel then, this beer, definitely a full-bodied one. I don't think there's too much about that. The mouthfeel is mainly oily. I think it's definitely fair to say this is an oily one. It's light. If you're expecting a quadruple from this one, it's not quite as oily and sticky as you like, but it is quite an oily mouthfeel from this one overall. Carbonation's very, very smooth. There's a little bit of bitterness from the hops in this one, but you know, I think you're talking about 25, 30, probably not even 30 IBUs, somewhere around 20, 25 IBUs out of this beer. The malt base overall, it has a bit of smoothness to it, but mainly it's leaning towards those kind of sweeter side of things, and you've also got that little bit of juicy fruitiness in there as well. But it's a beautiful, beautiful beer, and I would highly, highly recommend that you try this one if you get the chance. So yeah, let's wrap it up for this one then. Just a beautiful beer, and one of the more interesting, more complex ones that I've reviewed for you over the last little while. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Douglas Bryggeri and from Brouwerij de Molen, and I'm sure I'll return to these guys in the fairly near future. Make sure you check out Dutch Beer Geek Holland, and also Thomas Open. As I said, those Dutch guys are doing some very, very nice reviews. They'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on in the Dutch beer scene. Of course, they've got English reviews and they've got Dutch reviews, and there's some great beers coming out of the Netherlands. As I was saying, guys, make sure you check out the Dutch beer reviewers here on YouTube. They're doing some great reviews, and they're always keeping you up to date with what's going on in the Dutch beer scene. Make sure you check out my social media, and make sure you check out more beers, both from Douglas Bryggeri and from Brouwerij de Molen in the Netherlands. Both of these breweries doing some very, very interesting stuff. And if you can get a hold of this beer in particular, you're certainly not going to be disappointed with it. A really, really nice example of what you can do with a little bit of experimentation. But thank you again for watching my reviews, and I will catch you guys very soon. Until the next time, Slàinte, Skål, Prost.